Recently, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, who's one of the faces of the Democrat Party, believe it or not, decided to mock Texas Governor Greg Abbott's disability by referring to him as Governor Hot Wheels. And of course, per usual, you have the same virtue signaling libtards who talks about ableism. Oh, we can't be ableist because it's one of the things they like to virtue signal about when they're not virtue signaling about race, gender identity. Handicaps has been added to their repertoire. But of course, when one of their own does something racist or says something racist and sexist or even homophobic or transphobic, which I could give two craps about. But anyway, when one of their own makes these same type of comments, of course, they have nothing to say about it. And my thing is the governor should respond by calling her a nigger. Then we'll see if, oh, it's just jokes, then let the jokes fly. But, this is just another example of this party shamelessly pandering to the most insufferable demographic in this country, which is liberal black women, which they already have almost 100%. In the most recent election, they got voted that way. They voted that way 92%. And so you would think, they would seek out some other demographic. But no, I think they're still counting on there's enough racially cucked white people in this world that will still support this party, even though they use the Jasmine Crockett's of the world to make it abundantly clear that anti-white racism is one of the main cores of their party. And again, a insufferable, hateful black woman that's liberal is the perfect specimen to use to express your anti-white racism, which is, again, one of the main bases of the Democrat Party, which is why voting that way as a white person, especially a heterosexual white male, makes you the most pathetic demographic in this country. Because at least with the Democrat Party and the minorities that they exploit, well, at least they pander to them and make it seem like they are their friend, especially when they reward idiots like Jasmine Crockett. But they don't even pretend to like white people or at least put out positive messaging about so-called white people. And as you know, this chick with her hood rat ghetto mentality, we know is all artificial because she grew up privileged going to a majority white school. But why does she still play the ghetto hood rat? Well, quite frankly, the Democrat Party has realized that being hood, being ghetto, is black culture, so-called culture. Now, of course, so-called black people in general would never admit to that, but the reality is the people that usually get called the sellouts or race traders tend to be people that hold no connections or at least try to disown any connections to anything hood or ghetto. Meanwhile, people who engage in those mannerisms, that manner of speaking, the behavior, those are the people that get categorized as keeping it real. And we've seen this through mainstream media and Hollywood when they have these so-called black movies from time to time. Uh, they'll like villainize the black Republican. Inkwell, I think the name of the movie was, with Lorenz Tate, is a prime example of a movie that did that sort of thing. Where you had the one side of the family was the revolutionary pro-blacks, and then the other were conservative Republican blacks, and they made them seem like corny and basically the antagonist in the film, one of the antagonists. So it's a common theme, and no matter what Negroes would publicly claim, what we see in action, what we see in behavior, and what we hear in words, being ghetto, being hood, is what makes up black culture. And thus, that's what the Democrat Party plays to. And so even when they get a Negro that's not actually from the hood, they encourage her to be ghetto and be hood, which is not a tough thing to encourage since ultimately you have blacks that do grow up well to do that still try to be black, aka ghetto and hood. It's really pathetic. I mean, again, just imagine so-called white people, for example, being well-to-do but trying to be trailer trash, trying to be a hick or hillbilly, because that's what they identify their so-called culture or identity by, being hillbilly or white trash. But the sad fact of the matter is that's how overwhelming majority of so-called black people identify being black as, being hood and being ghetto. And since the Democrat Party is the party of Negroes, of course they're employing that. And guess what? So-called black voters aren't negatively responding to it and calling it out and demanding better representation. So why would they change? And the fact of the matter is, even the Negroes that may complain about it, but they still vote Democrat, they don't really want it to change. Because if they did, then they would support the alternative for the very least to make them change who and how they put them out there.